always. Oh, it looks like we are live, which is an expression I got from Glenn. We are live. So I've got Glenn and Irina, the original triad, and we had 3 topics today. I'm the moderator. Topic number 1 is out. It was about theology, and so we don't have that one today. And we're with the last 2 topics, which should be enough to be discussing for a good 90 minutes. And it is related to charting the history of our triad, the successes, the failures, the elements causing it, feelings about this. And then the other topic is Earth Day 2022. Nothing specific, but I'm sure we have a lot we could share about that. Hey, guys, remember me? I remember you. I remember you. Have you been doing?
Yeah, a lot of stuff been happening. So, yeah, I haven't been following up that many of the threads online. Been a lot of things happening in the real world, so to say. Even though this is real as well, but it's just a little bit different. So, but I'm always thinking about these things. So I don't know if we want to go into the topics already, or Irina, want to say something first?
No, we can just jump in. Yeah.
I want to say you did already start on the topic, and we discussed about a lot of things going on. I don't think I usually have that much going on myself, and I look forward to any social interaction I can have. And this right now for me is the real world, because we're live. I'm here in the moment with you guys right now. So for me, it's using technology, but it's the real world. Later on, when things get online, even if we were really in it, does it not become the real world anymore? I'm reviewing, I'm at an hour and 20 minutes, I think, Glenn, of that video of us from 3 years ago, and I'm reviewing it. And I'm finding it very interesting and useful and productive to be reviewing this. So that non-world from 3 years ago involving me allows me to study, how congruent I might be, what I followed up with or not, things I forgot we talked about that are good ideas, and that I could have maybe reviewed that video earlier to keep evolving those ideas much sooner, and I kind of didn't. And how it's easier to understand you and put the ideas together based on the time passing compared to if I watched it right after. Because maybe right after I was, looking to see how I did. Did I explain myself well? Did I interrupt the other person? Did I look weird or whatever? I know I don't pick my nose, so I didn't expect to pick my nose on the video if I saw it again. So, well, I do, I just don't do it on video. So, but I just kind of find it very interesting. So even if it was like 2 people I didn't know, that's a conversation I think is worth reviewing, that one from 3 years ago that we had. And
yeah, we had several, didn't we? I think we had 2 or 3 fairly long conversations where we went into this topic of cultural evolution, and we also touched on social media in one of them, and yeah.
You know what I notice? I notice a pattern that when they're very long, I tend to try to want to go do dishes at the same time.
Right.
And then, okay, that's interesting. What did I? And then I go and rewind it. So yeah, I think that's why, again, I want to limit it at 90 minutes today. And I wanted to say as well, Irina, I really enjoyed a conversation we had, just the 2 of us once, where you have the space background and we talk about how unrealistic it is to think we're going to relocate on another planet. That subject and everything else we talked about that time, and how much fun we had at the end joking around that we didn't bite each other's head off. That's a fun video to rewatch. We're not perfect TED Talk people, because we're just on the spot here. We didn't prepare a dialogue that we've memorized, but those were some fun conversations.
Yeah, I remember when we had I think we had two conversations after one another, and I believe the first one, as far as I remember, we strayed very far off topic, and but then in the second one we kept very much to the topic, and so that they were very different. But I definitely haven't reviewed many of these at all. I just watched a little bit. So but it's also it's a beautiful thing though that you can create something like that, and it actually you can review it a long time later, and maybe in some ways it's even more interesting to review it a long time later, because you're okay, I was thinking about that stuff back then. Like
Here's what
yeah.
I'm noticing now, and I'm not finished reviewing it, is you knew a lot more about things and English words, even more than I did about certain subjects. And, it makes me think, okay, I have this opinion of Glenn, of how much, let's say, I could learn from him. Let's say there's categories, you put people, I could learn this much from him, this much, is I realize you were advanced a lot in talking about, and once I kind of could get through the accent, and there are new people I meet with accents from different countries in the last few weeks, and yeah, I just have to get more and more of their accents to sink in, and then I could get to their wisdom a bit more. So I'm noticing you had a lot of advanced wisdom in things, and this was about Daniel C. Dennett, right? The first video.
Yeah, I remember during that period I was very inspired by a few ideas that Dennett had about cultural evolution, because the funny thing is that he sort of comes at it from a very naturalistic perspective, very hesitant to go into any of the woo woo, so to say, but at the same time, when you just follow his line of reasoning, he comes into some incredibly interesting ideas about how we humans are sort of accentuators of evolution, that we're sort of the next step of natural evolution that happens through culture. And I just found it a very interesting approach, because it's it gives a big responsibility on us, but also a lot of potential that humans have, especially, of course, with the internet. And just the fact that we can have these types of meetings and look at them later, I mean, it's the perfect example of the things that Dennett talks about there.
Hey, you know what is we, with the GCC group, well, the topic always comes up about information overload. So many things coming at us from the internet. And I think I'm noticing this week, reviewing things I've already participated in gives me more choice to evolve what's going on up here than watching something new, even if it's shorter. So there's an element of growing my own thoughts by reviewing my own videos with you, with others, than finding a new one on a topic. And we were able to actually criticize the good and bad about Daniel C. Dennett too, which was good, because we were in a little debate. We didn't always agree on things, but we were beginning a friendship at that time. And so we were offering each other a particular level of respect that allowed us to hear the other perspective. That was great. Irina, stop being so beautiful. Tell us some more stuff. So Irina, have you ever reviewed videos you filmed with Glenn or with me or with both of us?
Honestly speaking, I haven't reviewed those after a while, but I reviewed after the recording was out. Yeah, but so what I've been listening to you guys saying, actually, I have this kind of I reviewed the interesting thing. I reviewed my own talks that I gave like a while ago, like a few years ago, and I also get the same. I don't know if that's a feeling or if that's a perspective that actually when you refine the information that you were supposedly having in your mind in a different time framework, it's quite it gives you another way to, like you mentioned, right, to see yourself from like from the future to the past, and then you say, okay, so what I could improve, or what where I have improved, or like maybe even the speaking skills, or the information delivery ways, or like listening to each other, probably also kind of as a skill. So yeah, I think I'm getting the same impression that what you were mentioning right now. But it's not specifically about our talks. I have not really honestly reviewed those. And it's a good idea, probably really, to go through the talk that we had, through the conversation again that we had 3 years ago. But I'm trying to say specifically in regards of my previous talks, like I gave talks, our videos, even some of the videos. Yeah.
So you focus a little bit more on the ones where you were the main speaker. And you're saying, when you're saying, I guess listening is a skill too, if you re-watch your answer to that part from this video right here, you'll see you kind of resent a little bit that listening should be considered a skill. It almost seemed like that in your face. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that might not be as important to you as being the speaker, as being the listener. Which one have you been favoring, or which one have you considered to be the most powerful in collaborations, or like what have you noticed from reviewing things, or I don't know, considering this topic right now?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come out that listening is sort of like important. It is an important skill. It's as when I was saying, probably I was thinking on more skills to include, so I probably it came out that way. I think that listening is the most important thing in collaboration. Is more important than speaking.
Hey, I haven't prepared this question, but here's a question where I'm preparing a piece of paper, and let's write half a dozen, 6 right now, skills that we need if we're going to collaborate. And we can pop them out at the same time. And if you had the same one, you can write it down. I'm writing listening. I'm writing, preparing for the topic. Let's say we know what it is in advance, just if it requires a little bit of research to have done that. Making sure that, we'll be present. That means like no multitasking or no getting the schedule wrong. And I've had a hard time actually with the time differences. That's something that frustrates me. That's why I notice I give my time zone and I want people to tell me. It's like, I don't want to do the research to find out, so that's a laziness that I have with my intellectual laziness. And even today, I'm proud that I'm the one who tried to send the link because I'm moderating, because I've always wanted Glenn to send the link. So that's been a laziness that I've brought in. So laziness of even like coordinating the technology and the time zones. That's my 4th answer. Are you guys wanting to name some of yours? I've got 2 more to put on my list for this question.
Well, yes. So you're basically mentioning skills. Yeah. Okay. I'll mention one
for succeeding at something.
Yeah,
what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because I've been participating in a lot of the GCC conversations on Saturdays. Not all of them, but I've sort of often been there on Saturdays. And what I feel is maybe the most important skill, I guess it's close to listening, but it's something about listening with an open mind. So it's something about having this curiosity, this leaning in with a sort of a curious attitude, where you're really trying to understand and maybe trying to explore, and you're sort of willing to explore something, and you're kind of willing to put your opinions a little bit at the door. And you can come back to them later, but for the time being, sort of put your views at the door and listen with a sort of an open mind and curiosity. I find that if that's there, that it's always a success. If that isn't there, it's much more difficult. I actually just want to mention that, actually. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that. Just said, I'm not sure. I'm not an English native speaker. I don't know if there is a difference or there is a proverb or a similar proverb that you have in English. Okay, in Russian we say you can listen, but you don't hear, or you don't necessarily hear. And we have two words. Listening is one word, and here is another word, just like in English, right? But when we say hear, it means that you heard, like you have heard, like you have understood, you have heard it with an open mind, right? You have listened to the open mind. But I'm not sure how it goes in English for this kind of probably proverb. And I would say that for me, listening, okay, if we don't engage another word, listening already kind of engages an open-mindedness. But this is specifically me, right? So it's also could be like difference in terminology, how people see differently the same terminology. So for me, that listening means that you're ready and your mind is opening, right? So, but many times we can see when people in conversations, sometimes, many times, it depends, of course, and they're talking, but they are not listening, and they're still talking. So I just found it's very interesting, right? Because like they're just talking their points, or they're talking at each other instead of to each other. And of course, in that regard, in that reference, I don't see that they're listening to each other, but they can talk, they still can talk, but they're not really listening. So, I mean, that's just my perspective, how I view listening. But thank you also, Glenn, for, clarifying that the open-mindedness. I think it's also a skill.
I'm sorry, Irina, I just want to say, if I did this, I didn't really want to stop you. I just didn't want to go press my hand up to go next. So this symbol, if I do it again, it'll be, maybe I'd like to do the follow-up. But if I see Glenn is, oh my God, I see his faces, he really wants to follow up on this, I'm okay with it. So thank you, Irina. And I'll prove to you I was listening when it's my turn. But first, I want to check with Glenn. Glenn, did you want to go before me on this?
You mean to say something more about
To continue,
these
to continue
skills?
the dialogue, yeah. I have things to say, but I can wait.
Well,
first time I see him.
I think that one skill is something you've already mentioned, which I've been pretty crappy at, but that is to actually review it later and to even write something later. But I have done that on occasions, and sometimes it's interesting to just write something later without even reviewing it or before you review it, and to write down ideas that have been inspired by the conversation. So it's not exactly like a review of what we talked about, because that's a little bit boring, but it could include some of it. But you can also go further, and you can sort of expand on some ideas that seem really interesting, that's based on what you've spoken about. And I have done that quite a few times with these video meetings, other video meetings. I've also done it listening to other videos where other people have spoken, and that's also an interesting exercise, especially if you're willing to sort of go a little further and explore some of the ideas, but in kind of novel directions. So I call this creative expansion. I kind of created this term, creative expansion. And I think that's a very interesting skill.
Is that different than cultural evolution? Because your answer was leading me to think about cultural evolution again.
Well, I would say cultural evolution is sort of the bigger thing, but creative expansion would certainly be a tool for assisting cultural evolution. I would definitely think so. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go next now. First, I want to apologize the phone. I hope it wasn't my mother, because I called her before to say not a good time to be calling in the next little while. But it could have been something else. There's a lot of bad calls here. The phone company here doesn't screen much for its customers. So I wanted to say that in a spirit of collaboration, I've just stolen 3 of your answers, you guys. Thank you. So my list is now at 7, and I only needed half a dozen. So here's what I got from Glenn at the beginning: is to define. No, that's Irina. Prepare to lean in. And you know, I catch myself sometimes saying, okay, I have this appointment. I'm sensing my energy from this type of night's sleep I had. Like I had a dream that was upsetting. So I remember telling myself, hey, you're hosting. Well, I'm just lazy in my comfortable position here, but I could be leaning in. But really is prepare myself mentally for the meeting is my answer number 5, which comes from Glenn, to leaning in. So you can offer the gift of respect you want to get from others, is prepare yourself when I show up for the meeting to lean in, make this a conscious choice and awareness. So that's number 5. Number 6 I got from Irina is define things. And that includes participation words, the difference between the kind of listening. And for that, we have to be able to role model it. So for example, hearing or understanding, or like, you know, if it's not, I get that a lot in my family. I heard you. And then you can tell, you know, you can't even ask my family to paraphrase me. They will frickin' disown me if I even ask to paraphrase me. And of course, if they sometimes try, they have not been paying attention or motivated to listen, right? So we could define the words hearing, listening, and understanding. Maybe that's the 3. And there's a way to actually test this right after, and to hold each other accountable for it as a triad, you know. So right now, I think in my reflecting your answer, Glenn, and your answer, Irina, is I believe I've been paying attention and I'm following up on it, which brings me to number 7, Glenn, that I put on my list from your answer. And it is actually to follow up later, because in the answer of research that I gave earlier could be to rewatch a video from the last time before you meet with the group again. But follow up after, and it could be, you know, a subdivision of cultural evolution. You called it what expansion? You said the words?
Creative expansion.
Okay, so, and sometimes that could just be the title we give later. Like, for example, Sam from the GCC group asked me, yeah, Martin, if you recorded, put the link to reference to the same video somewhere else. So if people are interested, they can see if somebody put comments somewhere else, for example. So when I did that, I was doing my post is the word, right? My post follow-up, for example. That's an example of that. So thanks. Like these almost would be given skills, right? And yet, if we measure videos we participated in by, for example, not even preparing ourselves to lean in, we'll see we failed at most of these, right? Most people fail, and they keep looking forward for the next week to fail again. So how come we kind of can understand these skills, but we kind of we just don't choose them as priorities, I guess. And again, it's because this is a muscle that takes a lot more endurance or courage or an ability to overcome laziness than lifting weights would. I believe so. I believe working this muscle, it's not a muscle, but is a lot harder. It takes a much harder worker. So all my life, my dad was telling me, yeah, you're lazy, because I'm not out there earning money for things I don't really want to buy. But I'm thinking, I'm evolving this, and this comes easy for me now. And I had to learn about this specific one, not just the brain of somebody else or brains in general. I had to learn about mine as part of the hard work I had to do so that I can rely on this in ways that what's coming in the future doesn't scare me. I can talk about it. And I'm not worried. I'm not worried that it'll be hard for me to find fuel or water or food. I'm not worried about these things because I've trained this in a way, overcoming what he believed my father was laziness, to actually be able to count on this, to even work well when it's dehydrated, for example. And those are things I'm proud of. But some of the things I had to do is this list I just wrote. We had to work on all of these skills because these are people skills, social skills. And if you want to expand this or any collaborations, these are things that must always be part of the conversation.
Can I add a little thing there? You mentioned preparing for a conversation. and I've noticed there's two ways I can prepare, which both are pretty interesting. One is to really prepare something beforehand, and I did that the last time when we had this with Colin. I prepared a few things. I wrote them down. I mean, I had some prepared answers. Today, I didn't prepare at all in that kind of way. It's a different preparation. It's just you just come and you're just ready for whatever comes. And that's also an interesting way to approach it, to sometimes deliberately not prepare, or you prepare by just showing up and you're just ready for whatever comes. And I think that both those approaches have their merit, and it's good to try both, I think.
Thanks for mentioning that balance. Irina, do you want to follow up with this?
Yeah, I'm actually, I think I agree. And if I can terminologize it, put it in terminology, for me, it's like that there is a difference between psychological preparations and physical preparations, right? So physical preparations are related to like really working things out before something. Like it's the same if you go back to school and there is an exams, right? This is a physical preparation, how much you know, and you go and you take an exam, right? But it doesn't make you psychologically prepared, because you can know lots of stuff and then you have anxiety hits you and then you forget everything, right? Just that. So I don't know why, but I had just this analogy, right? So the calmness of the mind, the readiness of the mind is very important. It's also kind of preparation. So are you psychologically prepared to have a conversation, contribute to that? I think that's what probably we like, I mean, most of people, we probably don't have a think of. We just probably focus mostly, I mean, just mostly on physical preparations, like to prepare some information, to have some research, to be on time. I think it's also a part of physical preparation, though it's also part of psychological preparation. So I think I would put it in probably in two different kinds, which is actually also intertwined, right, somehow, and should be balanced, as Martin mentioned. I think I agree with that.
Irina, I understand exactly what you're talking about, although I would not have used the word physical for that variety you're talking about. And I can't even think of another replacement word right now, but I know what you were talking about. And something I forget that's my error, and I don't know, maybe you guys know this if you know me enough for this, but I mean, there's been times in my life when I was in the fetal position in bed for like a year, and I had to rebuild my brain from that. So I remember what it feels like to not be psychologically prepared to just call the phone company to say I'll be late for paying the phone bill this month. That was overwhelming, spending a day like this. So I know what that feels like. But now that my brain is better, I would sometimes forget, or I would assume, or I would have the expectation that somebody shows up in a meeting, claim, I believe that they will show up as who they claim to be, which means psychologically prepared most of the time. And yet, many subjects that might come up and their response to it shows they are not. So that's an important thing. I don't know if that's a totally different thing to really put on the list as well. And again, we're going back to personal development here, and we're going back to checking in with people and adding all these social skills, because social skills, including referencing somebody else, which is part of counseling skills, it's good to receive counseling and it's good to learn how to give counseling. And when I was in Uganda, I found a PDF that was like 200 something page where it said, you can use this, just say you are using this when you teach a course on counseling skills. So I did that. And I was teaching counseling skills to people that were already employed as counselors, and they never learned this. They were so happy I was doing this, and they're already counseling others. So you can tell, oh man, we are screwed as a species. So thanks for bringing it up again. And I might forget again. And if I forget again, say, Martin, you seem pretty well prepared psychologically today, or maybe that's a feedback where I'm not that day. And I need to admit it, because I won't be a great listener. I wouldn't be a great moderator. And I would have to say, I have to excuse myself today. and I'm not going to say because I desperately have to vacuum right now. I would say because, well, it's either I failed in a series of decisions where I'm not psychologically prepared today, or I was triggered and I kind of didn't do anything about it. And now I'm more of a toxicity in the group today. And then I would say, and then I could next week come back. And doesn't mean I have to explain it or rationalize it, because really that's not as much growth as saying, hey, thanks for your patience, guys. And I'm sorry again that last week I did not succeed at my psychological preparation for the meeting, but I'm here today and I'm good to go. And I'm going to demonstrate this, by not just saying it, but by behaving it. So thanks for bringing that up. And we never know. One thing my ex-girlfriend told me that was great that I still haven't forgotten is, let's say I had a good day. I'm coming back. I had a great time with my students and I'm opening the door and she might be talking to one of her kids about something upsetting and I don't know. And she says, just read the room. When you come in somewhere, read the room. Because I might be in a great mood and I don't expect that even my good mood has a negative impact on somebody else in the way I came in the room. And I'd almost want to criticize them for that. Hey, don't ruin my good mood. But the thing is it's not about that. It's about somebody else has the right to have a bad day as much as I have. And I have counseling skills and I should be able to be not blaming them for ruining my good day. If I'm that mature, right? So that's something I'll never forget. That's a learning from one of my ex-girlfriends, and it's powerful. So it's powerful to almost just do a quick check-in. A lot of groups I've participated in is this check-in was a regular routine, and it's powerful for a group to keep doing this.
Yeah. I think I'll mention one little thing on that note. I wonder if it's possible to almost live your life in a way that's a continuous preparation and continuous development of the mind. Like for example, for me, I've always loved thinking in the sense of considering possibilities and imagining things and also reflecting on things, try to make sense of things. But at some point, somebody told me that I had to include the other faculties. There was something disembodied, something theoretical about my previous thinking, and I needed much more sensing the body, much more full body being presence, so to say. And this was a journey I started about 15 years ago and have been very engaged in. And this year, for example, I have a task to sit for 1 full hour every day in silence. And I've been able to do it now for so far more than 100 days. And I'm going to keep it going. And but this has really transformed my whole thinking process fundamentally. So yeah, thinking is one thing, but reading the room, it requires a much fuller attention. And sometimes it's important not to think too much, not to overthink something. Sometimes it's better to just let it go, and sort of the right insight will come. So I've almost come to this view this year that real thinking, like higher level thinking, is something that happens over a longer period of time. So it's almost like if an insight comes and it knocks on the door, and I've seen this insight come 100 times before, and every time it just came, here I am, look at this, then it's probably something worth looking at. And I feel like the real insights, they keep coming back again and again. So it's like real thinking, it happens over a longer period of time, and you don't really need to control it. You just need to try to be present. You try to behave well, whatever that means, which is a whole big topic in itself. But
There's a lot of
yeah,
there's a lot of inner wisdom, and we have to learn to pay attention to it more. And that 1 hour of meditation that you do, it actually helps you when you're in the room with others as well, because it
yeah.
provides training and focus. And it's not just
Mm.
your inner thoughts, but focus on a triad.
Yeah, it provides training focus and also patience. Actually, it's a training in patience as well, to be able to just sit there quietly for an hour and not rush it. Sometimes you think about stuff, other times you sort of really meditate. It's very different, but it's
Irina's injury makes it that she has to do more sitting now too.
yeah. How has that been? Is it less physical activity for you now, Irina? More quiet?
I'll do a
quiet
joke.
time?
I'll do a joke before she goes. A lot of her dancing, she puts makeup. It's such a habit now. If she meditates an hour a day, she'd have to put makeup for meditating. I wonder how that would look.
Well, when I do performances, I have to put on makeup because it's a performance. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and it also is related to what you guys been extrapolating on. So actually, because I think I just overdid, not only in the physical terms, but also I overdid in some mental, psychological stress that I've been experienced for around more than half a year, I would say, and it's kind of long term. And there were peaks and kind of, slow down, and again, probably again speed up and slow down. But it's a little bit quite painful, because it's been prolonged one. And so I think it's also related to my injury, because when you have sleep deprivation and you have stress, so you exacerbate the condition of your physical being. I do believe so, and there is rigid scientific evidence about that. So and yeah, because I've been almost already a month without almost like really intensive physical activity that I would do for when dancing. I mean, one of the jobs that I do is dancing, or teaching it. So I yeah, that's what I mean, I'm just listening to Glenn, and I was like, yeah, I actually should have been focusing right on the silence, and I did just lying down, like, and thinking and trying also to what is called empty my mind. But I don't think that I can personally empty my mind, because it's all the time, they're all the time thoughts, and they're all the time. I also keep my mind busy. If I don't do things, or I don't learn these things because of my physical disability, then I have to, like, for example, thinking the choreography. It's also thinking process, right? It's not just the practice, and you need to think on the new choreography. So, but now I don't do this, so I busy my mind. I get busy my mind with other things like that I want to learn, right? Because I divert my attention to actually overstraining now my brain, and I know that's what I need to learn. That actually I need to learn how to actually pull it back. And what Glenn probably is doing is a good exercise, right? To be more silent and stop overthinking, because I tend to do so, and sometimes because there are so many thoughts and ideas in my mind, I can't fall asleep, and I end up with sleep deprivation. And plus my very messed up schedule. Sometimes I have very early morning classes, and then I have night classes, so I sleep like 4 hours a day. Next day I sleep 8 hours, then again 4 hours a day, 8 hours, and it's just been all messed up. So, but it's also because I have to, do that job to survive. So, but there are other things that I actually could improve. So I think I just say thanks to kind of through your experience to remind me, and that made me think and remember things that I can work on.
Irina, it sounds like you're making progress, and it sounds like you're like everybody else. You are actually imperfect in the sense that even Glenn will acknowledge this, and even a lot of the meditation training I took is they say even monks that spend their entire lives, having as much control or focus of the spinning wheel in their head is they never achieve a final goal where there's no thoughts that they don't notice and say, what are you doing there? And they observe it and they let it go. That is impossible for us to achieve a state that our brains don't do this. And what you lost, Irina, that affected your sleep as well, is you have a very busy mind. And what helped you sleep before was the physical exertion that you don't have now. So now you're faced even more with the challenge of taking control of this spinning wheel, which is never a final product. It's never finished. But again, the more we practice, I went to a Vipassana meditation retreat, and when I was telling a counselor that I saw a few times because I invited him as a guest in one of my classes, so he was counseling me a little bit, and I said, you're my guest for this class where we have a guest. And I said, I'm going to go do this. And he said, well, I don't recommend it with that diagnosis you got in the past. And that pissed me off. And I did go do it. And I did succeed as well as anybody else, while some people couldn't handle it and they left. And part of why they left sometimes was, back pain. And the thing is I know back pain would also affect me. And I did that in my problem solving that I could handle. So it's 10 days of getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you don't talk to nobody. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned how reading was such an important part, and I don't use shampoo, but I reread that freaking shampoo bottle so many times in the bathroom. I just want to go there just to read the shampoo bottle, and there's not that much to read on it, because you learn about yourself as much in the toilet as you do in the meditation retreat with the others in the group. And it was a great experience about the state of where my brain is, how much control I really have over it, and how much to just evaluate the concept of judging ourselves for this control, because it's never a finished product. It's just included as part of our lives, like Glenn is doing. And now, Glenn, you're reminding me I should do something like this. I didn't practice a lot after, and then you lose these skills. But I was proud that I did this. And it wasn't the not talking to people that was upsetting to me. It was more like, I'm going in part now to prove this counselor wrong, as if he thinks his brain is 10 times better than mine. No, I'm sorry. I have a good balance of different types of intelligence. I can achieve a lot of my goals. And I'm not just doing it to be stubborn. I got a lot out of it. And I know that's an important part of being human. And I know also in my teachings about our brain is we are barely being born as a species. We still have very big imbalances, neurotransmitter wise or biochemically speaking, I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about disease. I'm talking about species wide. We're a very young new species. And I'm not talking about our behaviors again, which are prepubescent. I'm talking about the physical brain is still manifesting as what it's really supposed to be. And what it's supposed to be in big part is a lifelong learning specialist. That's really what makes us different than other species at the brain level. And yet people don't live their lives as lifelong learners. So thanks for you guys for showing up today, because you are helping my brain as a lifelong learner to stay on task.
Yeah, I think so. I really think so, that humans, we're sort of made for being lifelong learners. And somehow when I connect with that mindset, it feels like coming home. It's like, yeah, this is where I belong. It's everything becomes interesting as well, because even real difficulties and challenges can suddenly be turned into valuable learning. And so you can even you can come to a point where you can value pretty much everything, whatever happens. And you can find some there's always something to learn from it, right? Because it's real. It's almost like this deep respect for reality itself. Yeah, I sort of moved towards that as almost being my deepest value, a kind of love of reality itself, exactly as it is, with everything included, and exactly as it's also dynamically moving and flowing and presenting itself in such an unbelievable complexity and weirdness as well, you know, and just the sheer magnitude.
Hey, be careful, dude.
Well,
It sounds like you're excited about learning. People are going to think you're weird.
yeah, well, but it's interesting though. I mean, very few people are really against learning, and when you listen to most people, you know, they'll say that they want to continuously learn, and I think probably they do, but it's difficult.
That's actually
Uh,
something you talk about in that video from 3 years ago, that very same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I wondered what it is, and there may be something about a fear of the unknown, which can sometimes interfere, because if we're really going to be sincere, we kind of have to accept that we really don't understand almost anything about anything.
Glenn, you just made me think of a pattern to explain this that I never had before. I think the fear of the unknown is the outside of us, but it's mostly because of a fear of the known of inside of us, and that others might know it too, getting back to the Johari window again here. So what people might know of us, which is why images, fake images of people and what they're selling their entire lives, that they can't even tell the difference of their own fake images anymore. Fear of the outside, not as much, although it's maybe more fear of the work to learn about the outside, but fear of the inside and what we might discover about ourselves and what others might know about ourselves. I think that's a bigger explanation. What do you think, Irina?
I think that I have actually a different viewpoint, probably because I have different observations. So I think that there is another issue. It's not what I observe, of course. It's all based on my probably also subjective observations. Is the issue is not that people are feared of unknown, but the issue is that they think that they know the unknown, and they are convinced. So I think this is a big issue, because probably nowadays it's with our internet era, people tend to claim more that they know lots of stuff, and the problem is that they're sure about that, but I don't think that we can sure about anything, especially also during the internet era, because it brings some disadvantages as well as advantages, such as misinformation, all this stuff. So I think a bigger issue, what I've been observing, is people are too assured that they know. Instead, they probably not should be. I'm not trying to tell people what to do, but probably would be better for everyone, and for the learning process as in journey, or in general as a species, is to question everything. So, and question your own knowledge, or your own perspective, or your own yourself. Even as probably what Barton also was saying, something in that line, is actually harder than questioning somebody else. I mean, those things of somebody else. So yeah, that's what I've been observing, but it's purely subjective, I would say.
Thank you for following up. And I like the way you began the following up to say, you know, what I have to say is different than what I heard. When you say people are too sure of the outside and they don't, you know, question it too much, if I enter a conversation with them about it, then I'm picking up signs of fear and intellectual laziness that would that's what I'm getting back as a feedback. And when it comes to being certain of the known, of the outside, it's also to get away from the bigger fear, or the bigger work that I think you both agree with as well, of being sure of who we are, because people know themselves a lot less. So that means they're a lot more wrong about who they are than being wrong about the outside.
Yeah. I like what both of you say. I think there must be a relationship with that. That if you're not capable of really understanding yourself, or not willing, or don't really know where to begin, or it could be many reasons, it's probably something that's strongly correlated with this tendency to view the unknown in terms of some idea that you sort of attach to, and you pretend like stuff. Like the most obvious example, is when you see online people talk about other people, celebrities that they've never even met once in their life, and they speak about them as if they know the essential nature of their soul, right?
They haven't even seen a biography on that person.
No, and that's it's almost a joke, right? It's almost not even almost a joke. It's a total joke to mention a celebrity or someone, pretend like you know who they are. It's astonishing, really. But another benefit here of getting to know yourself better, which is certainly something that's come out of this meditation practice that I've been very engaged in for 15 years or so, is you sort of realize how many different aspects there are inside, and sort of almost like we're many people. And as you mentioned, this wheel that keeps on turning, and I've certainly not yet come to any point where I can turn it off. I maybe had a few short moments here and there where some very different awareness is there, but this practice, it makes you understand just how multifaceted I am, and that helps me also understand other people. They're also like that, right? That they have many different personalities, almost. That there are many natures, there's many forces, and maybe they have a sort of an image that they try to project. But if you really get to know them, especially the people that I've gotten to know relatively well, vastly complex creatures, human beings. We're very strange, very complex. We're very contradictory, and it's not even a bad thing. It's almost like we're fundamentally contradictory, and that creates a possibility for an evolution as well.
I totally agree with that. I'll follow up with that when I come back from having a quick little pee break. So can you please respond, Irina? I'll be gone for just a minute or two. Keep going.
Yeah.
Irina, follow up in any way.
I'll try it. I think the one of the tools to know yourself and by knowing others is to practicing and listening to the views that are opposite to yours. So because when you listen to the oppository news, like the opposite views, it actually reinforces and forces you to get back and look at yourself from a different perspective, rather than if you talk to people who have the same views. And because you all the time will be confirming that your views are right, and there is not actually much discoveries going on, because it will be all the time like reinforcing loop, like like just getting the confirmations from those people of your whose views are really similar to yours. And I think the challenging part in an exercise of discovering yourself is to listen to the people who have the opposite views, and understanding them and trying to take their perspective, because that will break your loop, your reinforcing loop of the confirmation that you are comfortable to hear. So you will hear something that you are not used to, and that will be challenging, but then you will be discovered and question, oh, are these actually can be questions? Can these be questions? Can I grow my mind in a way from learning those differences, rather than just confirming what you already know or what other people know, because it's going to be almost the same, because those people are in the same category of your confirmed views. So I think this is one of the ways that how you challenge yourself and grow your mind, by listening to the people who have different views. But it has a lot of takes a lot of patience and time and energy, and that needs to be also in a balanced way, that those people are also willing to do the same. Then that will be probably an exercise and way to discover yourself from another perspective. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, that it's a very useful exercise of the mind to listen to people who think completely differently about something than what you usually do. And I guess it comes down to diversity as well. Sort of, it trains the mind to just get exposed to a diversity of views and perspectives.
Hey, I'm back. I don't know if the moderator is supposed to go pee. I don't know what the rules are.
No, but I think you.
Hey, and I didn't give you guys permission to make sense when I was gone. Don't make too much sense when I'm gone. But when I came back in, I wanted to check the room. Nobody seemed to have been triggered. Nothing like nobody was fighting. Nobody was crying. I wanted to check that in. And then I heard Irina talking, totally agreed, totally sounded like a great follow-up to the topic that I left. Glenn, you kind of started this topic a little bit that Irina followed up on, and it is, over the years, I noticed my brain in its thoughts wanting to almost be in debates with itself, right? It was a need almost. And it's not like I hear different voices or personalities or it's schizophrenia. It's just, I noticed, trying different thoughts, and they're all me, and they're all me that really is this position, this position, this position. And the brain needs to do this in a way to evolve. And then Irina brought it back to, yeah, we need some people just have relationships with their opposites almost in a way, and we need the conflict, and people don't need to actually prepare to be in conflict because they're automatically outside entities from us. So there's already differences. They don't need to prepare for a great debate. They just need to be themselves because they're automatically different from the years and years of different experiences and thoughts, millions per day that they've had to make them different than us. But what they need to learn, and what these two individuals need to agree on, is the social skills, which will provide the balance of these differences to actually allow both to evolve. And again, we're back to personal development, social skills, life skills, humanix principles, in the sense that how do we respond and how do we take control of what is the most efficient response for the group? How do we manage this? Because no matter what scientific topic, taking a ship to Mars or solving a climate emergency, none of these things will happen unless we get into what we are the most late about out of all forms of technology and science, human thinking tools. There's nothing we're more late with or disconnected to reality and modernity than this. And we didn't even need to to invent fire or the wheel to have already made more progress with Unix, because and even without complex language, we didn't need, because even nonverbal communication could have allowed us to make more progress with the human thinking tools that would allow collaborations to flow. So we don't just think we're the best species on this planet, although the evidence of, let's say, extraterrestrials studying us would say, no, they're like 136 on the list of sentience or sapiens. What the hell's wrong with these guys? So again, we need to be able to look at ourselves, look at how conflict can be good with the certain skills only.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was one thing I can mention. This concept of behavior has been a real interest for me in the last few years, because it occurred to me that I would define behavior here as the pattern of movement in space of the body. And let's also include the pattern of movement of processes inside the body, which includes the thinking and the nervous system and all kinds of stuff. But the perspective on behavior, which I found so interesting, is to view behavior as a kind of gate between the inner and outer world, and also a gate between imagination and action. So if we, in our imagination, can see a possibility, and if that possibility is to be realized in the world, then behavior is the way we do that. And one of the beautiful things about behavior is that it's so relevant. And I almost laugh thinking about it, but I challenge people to say, can you mention anything that's more relevant than behavior? And I've never found anything more relevant, because it's one of those things, it's always relevant how I behave now. And it's always right in the sphere of what I can influence. And all the other stuff that I can't influence, that doesn't concern this. But if there's anything I can influence, that influence will happen through the behavior. So, and it occurred to me that behavior is this word that's so common, every 10-year-old knows it. And at the same time, I wonder if it's almost like an overlooked treasure, because we view it in almost a passive way, that behavior is almost like a reaction to outside forces. But what if we view it creatively? What if we really take responsibility for our own behavior and almost view it as an expression of a work of art in the world, where we can express something in the world through the behavior. And then if we can be very mindful about our own behavior, this is where all the possibilities are. And if humans as a species could learn this skill, I mean, there's nothing that we couldn't solve. There, it would probably be solved very quickly in all the global issues. So because when people talk about systems, capitalism, socialism, I think that sort of misses the point. Those systems are completely defined by human beings in space who are behaving and acting and moving around in space. And if you ask 100 people what their ism means, you're going to get 100 different responses. So I think it's almost like a dead end. It doesn't make much sense to understand the world through these isms. So that's maybe another big insight. But behavior and the language of pattern of movement in space is something universal. It's something the mind can grasp. And I'm wondering if just the thinking skills that are needed is the thinking skills that actually directly connect to the pattern of movement in space and the behavior in space, and especially our own behavior. right? Because that's the thing that we're responsible for. And yeah, this has almost become like a rant for me, or a big fascination. But to view behavior as an opportunity, as an expression of something creative in the world, I think that's a very, it's yeah, it's
Glenn,
probably the most relevant thing ever. Yeah.
I recently gave you a compliment about empowerment intelligence, and empowerment, assumes of others. Well, you just gave a beautiful definition of accountability in our own behaviors in an inspirational way. I've never heard anybody saying like this. So I'd like you to maybe practice saying it in case you show up on Saturday. I want to hear it again with you saying, okay, I'm preparing my words now to give. Don't say the word accountability because it freaking upsets people, that word. Just say how inspirational it is to have the movement through space of the power of the choices to create the behaviors we want. Irina, before I follow up again on this topic, go ahead. Do you want to say anything about this?
I don't know what to add, but I'll just add that how much I agree with that, because behavioral science, human behavior science, is the most complex science among all the sciences. And I think it's due to what just Glenn mentioned. It's because of due to its uniqueness. Everyone's represents. So Glenn used the word expresses, right? Probably represents himself or herself is a reflection of the set of actions, dynamically, changing from due to different factors, environmental factors. Normally it's like environmental factors. Of course, we have some epigenetics involved and genetics to some degree, but it's mostly the environmental factors. As far as I have known, the science of human behavior has had the consensus of that. So I think it's just really important, and I also agree that Glenn described it in a very how to say that, inspirational ways. Because we tend to actually on this topic, I've been already talking about this like a few years ago for years. And we have a group, and I was involved in the Venus project. And now I'm not actively involved, but at that time we read a lot of research and watched, like lectures, and including the also epigenetic stuff and biology, like evolutionary psychology and all this stuff. But we tend to talk about this human behavior as a little bit in a negative, like a little bit with a negative connotation. Yes. And what now Glenn is expressing, I think we should really flip the connotation and look at this as a uniqueness, and talk about this as a uniqueness to every single person, on this planet and maybe beyond. But I mean, there are people in space still. So I think that's very important to recognize, because also the science or even the human behavior research has been bashed for many years, for decades, for such negative connotation. I think we need to stick more with the positive connotation to find more uniqueness, and rather than something that, of course, we need to improve in our behavior as a species, especially. But I think it should be started from a different perspective. Probably that's what we could exercise. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, that perfectly captures
Glenn,
the point.
Glenn, I'm the moderator. I saw your hand up, but I wanted to bring you back by just saying something. We mentioned isms before, and I don't know too much about the Kardashianisms, But you know, we're talking about people in space. I just still want to see people in space as Star Trek: The Next Generation, as role models of how we could be. And bringing you back, Glenn, to what you started, and Irina is also, and we're all admitting this is years and years of discussion, is how it's so obvious that the behaviors we manifest create the cultures we want, the world we want, and yet we don't do it. And yeah, it's kind of been militarized, the science of psychology, right? It's been taken away from us. But I don't want to blame the military, because if there was any cultures of the world that were already so ingrained with that basic wisdom that the conscious behavior we manifest creates the world we want that is good for everybody's happiness, then you know, it could not have been militarized, but it never was part of any. And if it was, that culture would have been destroyed pretty quick. So I've never heard of one. We've never reached that level. So Glenn, follow up, please. You're still on this. You brought this up.
Yeah. I just want to, emphasize what Irina said, that there's something about our attitude to the whole phenomenon of behavior that's been very negative. And I've actually done a couple of Google searches where I've searched on the term great behavior or fantastic behavior, and it's astonishing how little there is about this topic.
What is it that you found?
Very little. I mean, there was some stuff about teaching kids, and then there was some sort of appropriate behaviors at work, but it wasn't at all any large thriving field of research into new interesting behaviors. So it's occurred to me that, for example, the system of law is a way of regulating behaviors up to the point of what's acceptable. And then you punish what's unacceptable. And I'm all for that. It has its place, at least for the time being, until possibly we evolve beyond it. But the whole field above that is almost untouched. So I just see it as this enormous opportunity for humans to explore behavior in the higher realms, and with a much more positive approach.
What keywords were you using, and which ones came up, even though they might not have been the ones you were using on such a subject?
I tried great behavior, fantastic behavior, high quality behavior. It's a little while ago, but it was quite astonishing just how little I found that related to this interest that I'm expressing here, which is an interest in a much more creative relationship to the whole topic, a much more positive relationship. As Arina said, that somehow that has been completely overlooked by humans. So, you could just view it as an undiscovered treasure that's very, very close by, if we're just willing to engage with it consciously and deliberately. And as you say, accountability, responsibility, all of that is covered here. If we can engage with behavior creatively, then we're already responsible. We're actually responding to the world deliberately.
If I travel space and I'm an extraterrestrial, and I look at the teenagers' t-shirts in different planets, and I evaluate what their language is, and if the majority of wearing catchphrases that have the word accountability in it, that's a place I would want to visit. If I have access to a lot, that word must be a comfortable word. It's a basic civilization building word. And in French, in Quebec here, it's lost. Even the premier said we don't have a word in French for accountability. When we do, I've tried contacting him, saying I'll teach you what it is, and asking translators. They don't know what it is as a majority. It's sad. Irina, go for it before we maybe change the subject soon to Earth Day. We're going to finish up our thoughts, the three of us. I'll go last. Do you want to start with finishing up this topic, Irina?
It just challenged me right now. I finish the topic like that. I'm not so good at conclusions.
Okay. Is it because you're enjoying the topic? Because we can do Earth Day next week if you want. Do you guys want to stay on this? And because we're about 90 minutes now, we can maybe finish up in 15
Yeah.
minutes on only this topic. Do you guys want to agree with this?
Yeah, I have one more thing I would like to say on
Irina,
this
do you have a
topic.
thumbs up for
No,
that one?
no, I let
Ag-
Glenn go first. Yeah.
Yeah, but do you
thanks.
agree with no Earth Day topic today?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, sure.
then Glenn, how about we'll both go twice each, okay, before we end the video, so we don't really exceed too much 90 minutes. So go for it.
Okay, so there's one more aspect that I wanted to mention about this topic of behavior, and that's the richness of behavior, the inherent magnitude of possibility. Because, for example, I was very interested in playing chess when I was younger, and it's quite interesting that just 32 pieces on 64 squares, even just something like 10 moves into the future, you already have trillions of possible scenarios in terms of just the different combinations of elements. And it occurred to me that when it comes to behavior, even if you just look at 1 second into the future, I mean, all the possibilities are vastly beyond the game of chess or any other such game. It's because you're dealing with 3-dimensional movement in space. So I wanted to just add this, that in terms of just the sheer space of possibility of possible behaviors, it's just, for all practical purposes, it's infinite. I mean, it's an astonishingly rich field. And I also think it can be quite fun and almost a lot of very strange and very exotic behavior. So almost like it could be good for comedy as well, just to explore just completely new ways of behaving. Yeah, I just wanted to add that not only is it extremely relevant to everything we care about, but it's also almost totally undiscovered territory. It's we haven't even touched the surface of what's possible there. So that was really the last thing I wanted to add on that topic.
So okay, so I'm not sure so which topic of this is, like the behavior or thinking tools. I think their thinking is just something like premise. It's a premise for action. And so I just want to say that thinking is not enough, right? So like thinking needs to be implemented in some form of behavior. And also I think we need to consider that because everyone is unique in their own behavior, and her or his behavior, and it's a really complex area, but yet it's intertwined with all the other areas. So I think it's becoming even more complex when you look at this systematically, because it's kind of like a neural system, a neural network of what's going on in the real world, right? What's going on actually in the world. And the behavior is that what keeps actually all the events and what is going on, like today, tomorrow, right, going on. And so that's how I see it, right? I'm not sure if there has been systematic research of how we engage this neural network, this behavior patterns and system into the larger system of the reality of what's going on, right? And the world itself or the humanity, right? But that also would be interesting if there is something like this, and probably extrapolate of how it can be done, because I think the systematic approach and system thinking is one of very important thinking tools or skills that everyone could work out and see the bigger picture rather than like seeing things like partially or by areas like behavior, or I don't know, like economy, society, or like what Glenn mentioned, like ideology, like communism, capitalism, right? So I think all these labels, and it's also very interesting to think of how systematically we can make the labels understandable for people at there's some level that they can agree upon. because I think that, again, I'm going back to the problem of terminology and subjective interpretations of, especially when this terminology is so subjectively interpreted, can be subjectively interpreted, and that also causes different kinds of behavior. So the problem is getting even more complex, right? I mean, not the problem, but this area is getting even more complex because of that. So I could actually say, talk for hours about this, about the systems approach, but I think it's just probably worth to mention.
Thank you, Irina. I don't know if it happened, Glenn, when you were listening to Irina, but near the end, I don't know if it was your internet was starting to bounce. I could still hear you, but it was starting. So I don't know if it was mine or yours, but I did hear a lot of what you said, and it made, well, all of it, but I think I was a bit distracted to not. So there's hearing, there's, listening, which is a commitment motivation more, and then there's understanding, and understanding is very rare if the listener doesn't ask micro questions of clarification, of probing, or paraphrasing, or things like that. Then I don't know if I'd believe that an understanding really happened. And I don't know if I believe people are systems thinkers when they don't even want to discuss the laws of humanics, the life skills, the basic behaviors. Glenn, when you're mentioning the chessboard, and there's a limited number of pieces on a chessboard.
Yeah.
And it's about the same number of limited life skills. But again, the variations, like for example, applying that life skill at home or at work. What's the difference? Well, this is the chess piece, and it's surrounded by these pieces right now, or these pieces. Again, this minimal number of life skills can create billions of variations within 10 minutes of these interactions between people. So again, why do we, like Irina is saying, the human brain is one of the most complex things in the universe, but why do we label people so quickly in their behaviors, which comes from this hyper complex thing? We see these behaviors as not even something we want to talk about, but we're systems thinkers. And you're talking about the uniqueness of behavior, but we're not open to see this. We're just labeling people very quickly when people are these complex brains where billions of different outcomes could have happened in just 10 minutes. One challenge I have is when I learned counseling skills, I received counseling, I learned counseling skills, I counseled others, and I even taught counseling skills. So if I'm in a relationship, like my ex long-term, the last long-term I had is, oh, I don't need a counselor, you're acting like a counselor. It's become my skills. I'm not actually acting like your counselor, but these are part of a set of human thinking tools. I'm not going to remove them from my software so you're more comfortable in our relationship. So that's not the outcome. The outcome is, please focus on what your brain is capable of, a lifelong learner through personal development. And every time we went to couples counseling, yes, the counselor wanted to spend more time individually. And yes, please, I want to be happy with you. I want quality for both of us. And it takes work. It takes work because even if we're not in a relationship, our brains take work. Imagine in a relationship, adding all those new interactions. But we're capable of it, and it can be fun. Glenn mentioned sense of humor before, and by the way, that's why I get good feedback when I teach life skills. is when there's triggers, and I could be a host that can handle these triggers and also add humor that is appropriate and that also demonstrates I've been listening and paying attention. Like Glenn, at one point you were you put these words in order, and I knew you weren't going to go there, but I thought this joke before. You were saying the beautiful thing about, and for me, I still got one hell of a crush on Irina. So of course I let my spinning wheel joke go and say, and here's my joke, which I didn't really think you were going to say this, but my joke is the beautiful thing about, but you didn't say Irina, you went on some other subject. And I wanted to talk about the beautiful things about Irina because I've always, and the thing is that's not the only thing about her. There's wonderful things about her brain, but they will manifest in an empowering way, I think, more in groups like this than maybe some of the experiences she had with the Venus Project, for example, which had good intentions and wisdom. But I believe, as I told her when I began research years ago on the Venus Project, is they were missing the life skills component. That's so sad. I wanted to believe in this. So that's what I see. So when I'm a counselor, and any group I could do online, and I see that some people are unconsciously, they're not mentioning it, but they're picking up my counseling skills, and they're almost like entering an unconscious attempt to interact with me in this way, because it's almost like they're testing to see what it'd be like to go into counseling. So, but it's not what I'm there for. But it doesn't stop them from contacting me separately if they want. And I offer these skills for free as a listener, but they don't. So, again, who are we bringing in the meeting? Is it the right place for that? Is, like if you bring checkers pieces on a chessboard, you're going to enter some interesting conversations. Okay, we've got one more time each. Glenn, you want to go next and we'll finish up? And remember, if we stayed on the topic of how our collaborations, the triad of us over the years, have evolved or not, and what does that mean? What lessons we get out of it? What feelings do we want to share? Maybe you want to finish your conclusion with that topic.
Yeah. Well, I felt that, this has been really awesome today. Really, really great. I felt that we moved a lot into sort of exploring the space of what these kind of collaborations can mean and what value can be found in them, as well as a lot of the practical topics of how to show up in a way that's useful. And so I felt it was quite forward looking, and I'm happy about that. Obviously, I have certainly not been very good at following up many of these threads. I'll say that straight away. Sometimes I'm not even good at answering messages and stuff like that. But what I will say is that I certainly think about the things people say, and so I've definitely reflected a lot based on what we've spoken about years ago and what I've spoken with several people about. So it's almost as if it continues, or it starts or ignites or continues a process of reflection, just like what Irina mentioned. Just the diversity of views in itself is very, very stimulating for the mind. And so in some way it's almost as if something just continues, even if you don't necessarily are so disciplined in following it up. But that has to do with energy and time, and sometimes I've just got like a million projects in my back of my mind I want to do, and that's just the way it is. So I've just sort of learned to accept that. And but I'm also there's some comfort in the fact that I'm sort of trying to have a long-term perspective, and in the longer view of things, I find that all of these types of conversations are very useful, whether or not they're followed up, however they're followed up. It could be more disciplined, it could be not. But I would definitely say that I'm quite interested in being a little more disciplined, in the sense of reviewing it afterwards, but also to write something afterwards that can expand on the ideas. So I will attempt to do that after today, because I think we really
Hey, Glenn,
came into some really interesting stuff. Yeah.
can I get you to reframe your statement of I will attempt to I will, and maybe say within 48 hours? And that doesn't mean you promise, 6,000 words, but can you make, because we were all here today dedicating at least an hour and a half to each other. I believe it's okay to have the expectation to have some sort of follow-up. So can you restate that? Because you've talked about this, the actual written part is important. So do you want to restate that in a different way and make some sort of commitment to
definitely.
us? And I promise I will read it.
Yeah, definitely. I will write something based on this. And
give me specifics. You will, that means you'll will. So what's a time, what's a, if you know how to say, a length of text by word count, maybe, do you want to say something like that, maybe? And don't give yourself an unachievable task. Give yourself an achievable task.
Sometimes I tend to write too long, so I actually have to work harder to keep it short sometimes.
So what's short for you that you could condense the quality out in it, and that you would give yourself enough days to get ready?
Well, let's just say within before the weekend, I'll write something, but I don't know how long.
Before midnight of your time there, and you don't know how long, but can you
say? No, not before Saturday, let's say. Yeah.
Okay. Before midnight on Friday, you will have released a text, and you can feel free to send it to me, and I'll put it on my YouTube video as well, under the description. So let's go with, it can't exceed the description allowed by YouTube. Is that okay then? Because there's a limited number of words for that. If you can't put on yours, I can't put on mine. Is that a good maximum? Doesn't mean minimum.
I'll try to keep it within that. I don't know how big that limit is, but
it's not as big as people that write a lot like, but if you can condense the quality into it, then I think it'll be awesome. Are you okay with this promise of commitment? Okay, thank you. Anything else you want to say before we go to Irina?
No, just awesome today. So enjoyed it.
Thank you. Irina, unmute. It's your turn.
I just want to mention that after our last talk, I think like 3 years ago, something, I dropped out from the group because I needed to focus on something else, and I'm still focusing on that. So I actually didn't do, except for Martin last year, I think it was more than a year ago, we had a conversation, right? What you mentioned, one of the conversation you mentioned. So I think that I feel a little bit ashamed because I'm now in the stage of my life that I have to focus on my survival, because I don't have the luxury of lots of time. I work at 3 jobs. Those are part-time jobs, but there are some things that I don't control, I would say. And so that's also was one of the reasons why I would say I haven't kept really also with you guys the updates or initiating some other hang out after that time. Um, yeah, I'm not sure what else to say. I also want to say that I enjoyed the conversation. It's been a while, and I always enjoy the conversation of three of us. I mean, it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy other conversations, but it was just the same. I think it was very cool, and I feel like I'm kind of like back to some degree to those conversations that I enjoyed, and that probably also can improve my thinking tools.
Thank you. I don't want to make Glenn jealous, so I'll do this for Glenn first. Glenn, this one for you, and now one for Irina. Irina, this one's for you. Irina, you have shared with me in the past that you have a very limited number of people in your life to have rewarding conversations with, right? That includes not just the subject, but who you are. So please follow up with this.
Microphone's a little bit low there.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's
It
better.
was a harder listening skill when the sound is lower. Thank you. Honestly, I've been frustrated, and probably some of my bitterness in interacting with you guys showed over the years, because I really, and I could say the word need, because we're social creatures who need
That's
social
not
interactions, and I want mine to be of quality. And I think we've had some decent ones, and I want more. So I'd like to recommend, if the same time and date is good next week, that one of you does it next week, and that we don't really go more than a week unless there's a doctor's note, almost, because this is good for us. We like it. So why do we not role model, keep doing it, and be more flexible? And yes, we all are biological and psychological creatures with the limits of our health or personal development at the time. And yes, we partake in the space-time continuum, and there's limits of how much our biological entities can fit into what we anthropocentrically call 24 hours a day. But again, this is the manifesting behaviors from our choices of priorities and how we decide. And I believe it would be good for us to not just do this for us, but to role model it as we post it online. So I'm saying that I would like, again, next week, and I don't mind hosting. And I found that when I said I was hosting, it happened a lot more. But really, what did I really do different than you guys today? I had a joke interrupting Glenn saying, hey, I'm moderating. You guys will get to do that joke next week if you want. But really, there's not a big difference. So, we have to look at this as if we can get more and more comfortable with each other and see it does not really take effort. Why do we come in thinking it takes effort when we can all lean in with each other? And again, keeping the group fairly small makes this easier. Then I want to commit till next week, and I'd like to follow up with you guys that one of you will saying, yeah, if not, there's a little variation of day and time, but not months. I would like this from you guys. I love you guys very much. And I use the word beautiful, but I don't want to be aesthetic, like superficial. But I enjoyed the uniquenesses of you that makes you beautiful as well. And it has nothing to do with what we share in common or don't share in common, or you're just unique individuals. And my brain tells me I need to have interactions so I don't manifest unique individuals in my head and just have this fun by myself. It's not right for a social creature. I want to grow with your help. Please help. What do I want to finish on? Did you raise your hand for a second there, Glenn? Did you?
Yeah, well, I don't know what's happening next week, but yeah, definitely. Let's talk soon. It's great, and I also want to mention one thing before you turn this thing off. You have to be careful to make sure you store the recording.
Yeah, and I made sure there's enough space so it'll succeed, and I will take my time. Thanks for reminding me. I don't want to lose it, but at least you're doing it too, and it's good that at least 2 out of 3 are recording it. And Irina, you'll get access to it. We can even send it to you if you want to load it directly on your YouTube if you want as well. There's our videos of the 3 of us on all of our YouTubes, and sometimes I share it again and I see the views grow, and I see that people that may have kind of more or less heard about it in the past kind of looked at it, and they'll look at it again. But again, they're looking at our faces. We're all pretty close now. And they're looking to see that this is not just people not listening. They're just waiting for their turn to say something else. I can see we're actually interacting as separate entities in a way that is blending in as a group. So Glenn, I don't know if it's okay, but I want to title mine discussing the evolution of global collaboration challenges. That's what I want to say. And I want to put it on that Facebook group. And it might sound arrogant, and it might sound, like.
And then if you post it in the group, then I'll share whatever I write in that group as well.
In
the
a
Facebook
comment,
thread.
maybe it'll, that's one way. But I will, when you write what you want to write, just send it to me by email, and I'll put it in my description of my YouTube. So thank you,
Great.
and I hope that one of you, because it's your turn, but if you don't, I will follow up. Because as much as I want to blame you guys, I still had the power to suggest next week instead of blaming you guys. I want more. I miss you guys. This is good for all of us. Why are you not committing? I could be like that, or I could choose, hey, if this was a good day or time, please next week. And if you guys say, okay, Martin, but can you choose a subject or moderate? I'll still do it, because I still make a profit interacting with you guys in this way, even if I do a tiny bit more error and learn a little bit more about Zoom or something. It's worth it. You're both worth it to me. Okay, both at the same time. Don't want to make you jealous.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to end the recording soon. So are we good to go to end? 3, do you want to make this face? Make that face, and then the YouTube video always chooses an image, and that's what it is. All 3 of us going like this. Do you want to try? Maybe YouTube will do it. You have the nerve to do this, Glenn?
Yeah.
I can't press stop at the same time. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hey, you're still. Wait, come on. 3, 2, 1. Okay. It's not me. I want to see what YouTube does. Maybe that's what I'll choose. Okay, we're going. When I press 0, 3, 2, 1. Bye, my friends. 0.